Hello everyone, this is Erik, the Asian movie enthusiast, and this is another one of those Asian movie collection addendum videos. So I got a batch of films here that are somewhat exploitative. We got some that are very classy. We got some that are newer releases of films that were very difficult to find previously, so a nice little batch. Mostly Japan, with a few from China, South Korea, and Hong Kong. So, as usual, I'll list titles to all these movies in the description box below. And I actually do have separate reviews for probably a majority of these. Let's get cracking here. Let's start with Mainland China. All right. Now, I have mentioned over the years that I have enjoyed a number of thrillers from Mainland China, and this is one of them. Perfect for this time of year as well, depending on where you live. And that is Savage. Oh, yes. Savage. Now, in this film, you basically have, let me read it to you. Buried by treacherous conditions at the top of Mount Baekdu, a policeman must brave the extreme conditions until he's relieved from his post. When a group of thieves stumbles into the station in search of safe shelter, the night turns into a fight for survival. Yeah, so this is one of those flicks that's just like consistently entertaining. You get some good thrills mixed in, some bits of violence, and the snowy conditions are also a big positive to this as well. Performances are solid. So this is just like a good quality, I guess, wilderness survival thriller too, in addition to all the other, regular thriller stuff. You get the wilderness at play. Now, this was released from Wellgo USA, but doesn't seem to have any special features to it, unfortunately. But it is worth watching if you're into winter-themed thrillers. This is a good flick, and I do have a separate review of this if you want more details. But this is a good pickup, kind of flies under the radar. Now we go to Hong Kong, a movie that I reviewed a handful of months ago, I believe, in a separate review. It's one that has always been close to my heart, and does have quite a high amount of cheese in it, but it's also kind of badass at the same time. That is So Close. Yes, So Close. I remember seeing this at Blockbuster back in the day, and they had a different cover on it. It almost seemed like Charlie's Angels is what the cover looked like. So I'm like, what is this, And then I watched it, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. And this obviously has, Zhao Wei, Shu Qi, Karen Mok. And it's a pretty fun action movie, directed by Corey Yun. And this one, you basically have two assassins, and then you have a cop. And this is almost like a newer age Girls with Guns flick, right? And, the assassins in this movie are very likable. And they do have certain morals as well, even though they're, clipping people for money. And, they eventually get into trouble with their contractor and the cop lady as well. And it goes from there. Now, this is a movie where, again, very cheesy at the start, but it builds and improves on every action scene until you get to the ending, which is a fight involving Yasuaki Karata, and it's just, like, the final 20 minutes of this movie I really enjoy. I think it's, like, a legit good scene. And it's, the actresses are all very watchable. Very. Now, this does have special features. This is Region B release from 88 Films. And it's got, watch this in the Mandarin dub, because most of the actresses actually speak Mandarin in the movie, so you definitely want that. You get interviews with Yasuaki Karata, Karen Mok, Shu Qi, Zhao Wei. Karata actually does a little bit of action commentary as well in this. Trailers, featurettes, and so on. So yes, this was kind of a gateway film for me, believe it or not, way back in the mid-2000s to get into the Girls with Guns stuff. So I always enjoyed it. Again, I have a separate review of that one as well. Now here's one. We're going to South Korea now. I never thought I'd be able to find this on Blu-ray, and there's not that many copies left. I just picked this up not too long ago, so that's why I wanted to showcase it. and that is Castaway on the Moon on Blu-ray, unbelievably. And this does have English subtitles. Now you could find, this is, who released this? Oh, CJ Entertainment released this. So this is the Korean release, apparently, I think. And I've yet to watch this Blu-ray, unbelievably. But if you could find this, maybe go online tonight, check eBay, Amazon, Yes Asia, see if you could find a copy of this if you can. My guess is that it might be difficult to find because there were not many that I found. So I'm glad I picked it up. But yeah, this is a genre bender. It's kind of a drama, comedy, romance. Some people classify it as a romantic comedy, but you have a guy who attempts to delete himself. I have to be friendly with YouTube terminology. Jumps off a bridge but survives and ends up on this little island in the middle of a river in South Korea. And he starts to just live there because he doesn't want to deal with life anymore in society. And meanwhile, you have a girl who's a hikikomori, and she's a shut-in, and she sees him from her apartment, and they have interactions with each other through certain means. And they end up like bonding with each other, even though they're not like really right near each other. And this movie's like elite. It's like one of the better Korean films of all time, in my opinion. But a lot of people have that opinion. So if you have not seen Castaway on the Moon, definitely watch it. I have a full-length review of it, I think, as well. I can't tell what the special features are, because the listing of the special features is in Korean. So I can't even really tell you. It says that it's a commentary by some people. I'm not sure if the special features have English subtitles. Usually they don't on releases like this, but it's worth it to get the movie with subs just for the feature film. So yeah, that's a must-watch, however way you can find it, folks. Now we're on to Japan. All right. Now, what do I want to cover first? Let's do one box set. Let's do a box set, a bunch of movies, and then another box set. All right, we'll do the classy box set first. This came out a little while back, and I've done separate reviews for a few of these films, but not all of them. And this is the Nobuhiko Obayashi 80s box set. The 80s Kadokawa years box set. All right. Now this box set is legit. It's got 4 movies. You got School in the Crosshairs, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, The Island Closest to Heaven, and His Motorbike, Her Island. Now, I need to reference my notes for this, all right, because it's been a while since I've seen some of these. School in the Crosshairs, also known as AIM School. This is from 1981, and you get 2 girls with psychic powers butt heads, all right? And if you've seen House, the crazy Japanese horror movie directed by the same guy, you can't go into this expecting it to be as nuts, all right? There's some similarities in terms of camera work and editing, but it's more laid back. Thematically, there are some references to fascism and control, and the stylization, odd conflict, and bizarre special effects help to make this watchable, but it's not really an exciting movie per se, right? It's a watchable, pretty good flick, all right? Then the next one, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. I'm sure many of you have seen the anime. But also, this is also known as The Girl Who Cut Time from back in the day. 83, a drama romance. And this one, it's like, if you've seen the anime, you already know the story. But the film starts off very strong, but kind of wanes a little bit, I think, as it moves along. I think the revelations this has during the final 30 minutes are kind of weak in some ways, and it's also somewhat simplistic and glacially paced. I mean, I prefer the animated film to this, but it's still a visually engaging experience and entertaining enough for reviewing, okay, for that one. Then we get The Island Closest to Heaven. This is 1984. It's a drama. After her father's sudden death, a Japanese high school girl travels to the Southwest Pacific archipelago in search of the location, which they agreed to visit together. And she encounters different people and locals. So this is very nicely shot. You get some exploration of I guess, non-Japanese culture in some aspects. Although it is rather slow, and it's just like a pleasant movie. So the first three films I'm talking about here, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, these are all pretty good films, right? Is the box set worth getting? And I would say yes, because those three films are pretty good, but most especially for the final film, His Motorbike and Her Island. And I actually did a separate review of this because I was inspired to do so. And this is 1986, and it's a romance. So after a failed romance, a temperamental young biker played by Riki Takuchi meets a carefree rural girl while riding through her island hometown and gets her obsessed about riding motorcycles. And this is very charming, visually engaging, a likable female love interest, and a nice contrast between city and rural life. So I think His Motorbike, Her Island is the strongest film of this set, and it's the most consistently entertaining. But all four are worth watching, and it's very nice to see some Japanese films from the 80s get some love, because even just 5 to 10 years ago, just finding Japanese films from the 1980s was really tough. But because of all the Blu-ray releases we've had over the last decade, it's getting a little bit easier. And this is the Third Window Films release, so this is all also Region B release. Now, special features, you get audio commentaries on School in the Crosshairs, The Island Closest to Heaven, and His Motorbike, Her Island. You get interviews on most of them, and or archival interviews or video essays, and a few other things. So, not loaded with special features, but the commentaries and other stuff are always useful. I'll show you a little bit of the inside here. But yes, I don't think I ever saw His Motorbike, Her Island or whatever before this Blu-ray set came out. So that's how important physical media still is. But yes, definitely worth picking up if you have the means. Obayashi, very interesting director. There's a few other films I'm hoping get a release at some point, but we'll have to see. Alright. Now we get to kind of my realm, or one of my favorite realms, horror movies. So this one was a big release, and it got a DVD release and a Blu-ray release. In this Blu-ray release, specifically, you have to go to the, I want to say SRS Cinema. SRS Cinema. Their website will have this, I think. And that is Liverleaf. Liverleaf. Another snow movie, another winter movie. I didn't really pick these movies intentionally tonight, but it makes sense given this time of year. And, yeah, this is a pretty sweet flick. Eisuke Naito directed it, who I think he's one of the most underrated and underappreciated directors of Japanese horror over the past decade or so. So, yeah, Haruka transfers to a new school, but she's bullied there. The only person on her side is her classmate, Mitsuru, and she endures the bullying thanks to her friendship with her. But then one day, something bad happens. Don't read the back of this, because it's pretty shocking. And she goes out for revenge against the fellow school kids. So yeah, this is a pretty gritty horror thriller film. Pretty stylized, a little bit nutty. There's a little bit of black humor, and this director likes to infuse a little bit of black humor into his horror films and thrillers. So, and it works. He's very good at it, I think. Now, special features, this has a few featurettes, trailers, biographies, talent files, thoughts on Liverleaf, and other trailers. So, not a huge batch of special features, but it has enough to top off the release. And this is totally worth owning. It's one of my, check my Asian horror playlist for 2018. I think this came out. I think it's one of my favorite Japanese horror films from the year it was released. And again, we got another huge release. I waited years for Liverleaf to come out. We got that not too long ago. And then this, I waited 8+ years for it to come out, and we finally got it. And that's The Eye's Dream. This is the Japanese release, and it has English subtitles. And this is the film by Hisayasu Sato, one of my favorite exploitation directors of all time. I'd put him up there, Takashi Ishii and Koji Wakamatsu. I think would be my top 3 exploitation directors in Japanese cinema. And this guy, I mean, Sato's, he's very inappropriate in his content, but that's what you want in an exploitation film. And this film is about a woman who's obsessed with eyeballs, and she's being stalked by a serial killer who kills people by attacking their eyeballs. And that's your movie. I did a separate review of this too. Very, very love the use of color in this movie. Some of the images you see. This is a movie that you watch alone because you'll just shake your head at what you'll be seeing in this. All right, you have to have if not easily offended when you're watching this, please. But yeah, there are some special features in this, but it's listed in Japanese characters, so I can't tell you. But if you're into weird stuff, you're not going to see many movies like this. Here's another one. I don't like it as much as some of the films we've been covering tonight. I think I covered this in my Asian horror playlist, if I'm one of the addendum videos. And this is the Error 444 release of Scissor. And I never heard of this movie before the Blu-ray release. You know, some of these I never heard of before they were released on Blu-ray. That's why these are important releases. Now this movie, I think you could check, just type the, well, never mind. I was going to say type the title into my channel, but it's such a weird title you might not be able to find the video. So basically, the plot is like, you have this guy, and he gets married for, like, the purpose of, like, getting laid. But his wife's not interested in him in that way. So the guy gets married, and, like, he's in this sexless marriage, and he gets really freaking frustrated, and you get this weird horror exploitation impact from that event. You know what I mean? And as you can see, you know, something happens. If you look at the picture on this, you know, you'll have an idea about what the title of the film relates to. And that, you wonder how you're going to get to that point throughout the film. Now, this movie, it's like so fast-paced in the first half. I want to say there's like a ton of narration, if I remember correctly, and it's kind of tiring because it's constantly throwing stuff at you. And then the second half, the pacing kind of slows down. You get like one exploitative sex scene that drags on for way too long, and it kind of runs out of steam during the second half. But it's such an oddball movie that it's like, it's kind of worth watching. But you got to be careful with this because you got to like weird exploitation flicks. There's also some very hard-hitting social commentary criticizing women in this movie. So this, you got to like be prepared, all right, in this one. But it's, you know, I don't know what to tell you. It's hard to describe it other than what I've done. Now, the extra features on this: interview with the director, interview with the actress, introductions from people, a short film, video essays, and trailers. And this is an all-region release. So, yeah, if you could find it, check it out. I wouldn't call this a high priority because it's just so uneven and I don't know. But I'm kind of glad I watched it. Will I watch it again? I probably will at some point, but not in a fast rotation. All right, the final one of the evening here. The final one. Now, these films, I didn't even know this got released. I'm doing a bad job keeping up sometimes, but I keep up enough. Now, this is a trilogy of exploitation films, all right, that is very, again, kind of offensive. You know, you get into this, like I said, some of these films are kind of offensive and exploitative we've been covering here. But they're kind of worth watching. And I'm kind of surprised they got a release. So I'm going to need my notes again for this because it's been so long since I've seen these. All right, now, these are called the Gaira Guts Trilogy. Guts Trilogy. All right? So the movies are Guts of a Virgin, Guts of a Beauty, and Rusted Body, Guts of a Virgin Part 3. You know, I always knew these as entrails. Instead of guts, it was entrails, whenever you'd find them, by whatever means. And, man, I don't even know if I could show you some of it. Well, I could, I don't know. I got to be careful with some of the artwork on this. So let me tell you what they're about before I decide to whether or not. Yeah, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to watch or show you on here. So, Entrails of a Virgin, 1986, Japanese exploitation horror comedy. This is the 88 film was released, by the way. A group of photographers and models stay overnight at a secluded building, only to be stalked and slaughtered by a mud-caked killer with a monster... A mud-caked killer with a monster... Yeah, so that's your plot of this one already, right? So at least half of this movie is nothing more than softcore pornography, really. But it kicks off. There's a scene in the middle, okay, where some dudes break out classic pro wrestling moves on the naked women. And that's all I'm going to say. And if you're a fan of like the WWF and WCW from like the 80s and 90s, you're going to recognize a few of these moves. And at that point, I was like laughing hysterically. And it was a hilarious scene. And that kind of gets you into the film. And then you get like the horror elements, which the death scenes are kind of short, but they range from stupidly funny to gruesome. Some could get pretty gory and somewhat surprising. So it's very trashy. It's a very trashy movie. But if you're into that type of thing, it's worth it. Yeah, I don't know how much of this... Alright, here's a pic. I could show you this. So this is Guts of a Virgin here. Alright, you see all the dead bodies and like stuff like that? It's not as cool as the artwork is. This is low-budget trash. But that's the first film. Okay, that's the first one. Oh, I could show you a few of these. Alright, now let's do the second film here. Okay. Guts of a Beauty. Okay, also known as Entrails of a Beauty. A Beautiful Woman. 1986, the same year. They were both released within a year of each other. Not a sequel, per se, more of a spin-off. The murder of a woman sets into motion a series of violent events. Now, similar to the first installment, there's plenty of nudity, sex, gore, and some other controversial stuff. But the mood of this movie is still kept somewhat light because it's kind of funny. You get fake appendages, 2 rubber, things, air hoses, a watermelon, etc. And the final 20 minutes are also quite entertaining when a gargling flesh monster shows up. Yeah. So I think both of the first 2 films are watchable oddities. I would suspect that most viewers will not particularly enjoy them. So, I'm not officially recommending these films to you folks, okay? Not officially. All right? But here's some artwork on the back. Again, you get some cool, like, hanging in the air, like a guy's hand with a syringe, and you get the women hanging out there. All right? So, now the third movie, all right? This is Entrails of a Virgin 3, right? Also called Rusted Body. Now, this came out in 87. All right, so all 3 of these films came out within like 2 years of each other. 2 women satiate their pleasures and torture people in order to extract information so they could steal some money. This is not as much fun as its predecessors, mostly because it's more of a formulaic pinku film. Too much sex and mediocre filler material. And that's one of the problems I have with like the pinku subgenre of Japanese film. And that's one of the reasons why I love Hisayasu Sato so much. It's because even though some of his films suffer from those problems of it's just not a whole lot happens outside of the sex, he does a lot of creative stuff. This one, the third film, kind of drops the ball a little bit with the fun and creative stuff. There are a few pretty good scenes involving a bucket of water and drunken eels, but it cannot compete with like the crazy like prosthetics and crazy stuff we got from the first 2 films. So, it's a downgrade. Rusted Body is a downgrade, in my opinion. All right, now, how can I say this? All 3 of these... Oh, they do have a special feature list. Okay. So, I would say if you're into exploitative stuff, worth picking up. But you really got to be into it. All right? You get... this was a limited edition I got too. Booklet notes. brand new interviews with the director. Wow, that's pretty interesting. These movies were made almost 40 years ago, and you're getting the director for brand new interviews. Stills galleries, trailers, newly commissioned artwork. The artwork is pretty sweet, I'll tell you that much. And some extra stuff like that. So hey, if you're really into like the slimy Japanese exploitation, do it. If you have the means and you can pick it up. This is the 88 films release, by the way. So that would be Region B, I believe. I think it would be Region B. So yeah, you got some weird stuff here this evening. But I would say if you like classy stuff, oh man, Castaway on the Moon is awesome. Those Obayashi films from the 80s are worth it too. And Savage, if you want a good thriller. Cheesy action, we covered it with So Close. And the rest is mostly like, gotta have a bit of a stomach. But, hey, there you go. And I'll do more of these videos throughout the year. I got more pretty cool releases I've gotten recently. So let me know if you've seen any of these. I'd like to know what you think. And as always, folks, I'll see you next time.